At 0526 local time in the Florida Straits, Coast Guard Sector Key West logged a medical emergency from a public beach just south of Marathon. A man had emerged from the water disoriented, hypothermic, and barely conscious. Beachgoers initially assumed a near drowning. Responding units did not. The man showed no evidence of a surface incident, no overturned vessel, no missing boat report, no debris field. His symptoms were consistent with prolonged cold water exposure following ascent from depth, not wave action or exhaustion near shore. When questioned, his statements triggered an immediate escalation. He identified himself as a mechanical engineer from Miami. He stated he had exited the water from approximately 40 meters below the surface, and he described a manned underwater structure embedded into the seafloor. Not a wreck, not a cave, a facility. Within minutes, Coast Guard intelligence officers initiated verification protocols, not because the claim sounded dramatic, but because the details were operationally specific. Depth estimates, cardinal bearings, internal layout descriptions, power distribution, pressure compartments, docking geometry, the kind of information that does not come from confusion. At 0640, a Coast Guard patrol cutter deployed a remotely operated vehicle at the coordinates provided. The descent initially showed nothing unusual. Sediment, rock faces, terrain consistent with underwater canyon mapping in the area. Then the ROV adjusted heading. The video feed changed. Straight edges appeared where erosion should dominate, uniform curvature, panel seams. Light sources recessed behind thick structural windows. A large embedded structure coated in textured material designed to visually blend into surrounding stone. The vehicle continued forward. Inside the outer recess were enclosed docking bays. Low-profile, dark-hulled vessels aligned with precision. Semi-submersible craft with hydrodynamic shaping consistent with narco-sub design. Multiple hulls. At that moment, the operation moved beyond Coast Guard jurisdiction. Navy command elements, Joint Interagency Task Force South, federal law enforcement, and maritime intelligence analysts were notified simultaneously. This was not a smuggling route, it was infrastructure. Initial analysis focused on why such a facility existed. The answer was already known. Surface smuggling has become increasingly constrained. Satellite imagery, maritime patrol aircraft, radar coverage, AIS monitoring, thermal detection. The surface environment is saturated with sensors. Subsurface launch avoids nearly all of them. The facility functioned as a submerged logistics hub. Vessels could be repaired, fueled, loaded, and deployed without surfacing. No wake signatures, no port traffic, no overhead observation, minimal acoustic exposure when stationary. Camouflage was deliberate and layered. Intake systems were disguised as natural runoff channels. Thermal output was diffused through surrounding rock. Power was routed through buried cabling later traced to compromised coastal infrastructure. Waste dispersal relied on prevailing currents to eliminate concentrated trails. Depth alone reduced accidental discovery. Recreational divers do not operate at 40 meters inside canyon walls. Most survey systems do not linger long enough to notice static anomalies designed to mimic geology. But the most critical feature was internal. Flood control. Analysts identified multiple internal pressure systems capable of inducing catastrophic flooding. If activated, the structure could be sealed, flooded, and erased within minutes. Personnel would not survive. Evidence would vanish. That defined the mission profile. This was not an assault. It was a containment and seizure operation. Command objectives were established with clarity. First, secure life support and pressure control systems before any personnel breach. Second, isolate internal communications and automation. Third, extract non-combatants without inducing decompression casualties. Fourth, preserve the site intact for exploitation and intelligence collection. Speed mattered. Noise could not exist. Insertion was conducted using Navy SEAL delivery vehicles launched from a submerged platform outside the detection envelope. No surface vessels approached the site directly. No visible disturbance. No acoustic spikes that could be detected inside the facility. Once on site, control elements moved directly to system hubs. Electrical regulation, flood valves, internal pressure locks. Redundant backups were physically disabled. Within minutes, the facility was incapable of being scuttled from within. Only then did clearance teams advance. Inside were workers, engineers, welders, mechanics, electronics technicians held under armed supervision. Skilled labor forced into continuous operation, not traffickers, assets. treated as replaceable by those who controlled the facility but essential to its function. Security personnel were isolated without engagement. No firefights occurred. Control was established through speed, positioning, and system dominance. Evacuation planning began immediately. Moving people from 40 meters to the surface is not a tactical challenge, it is a medical one. Rapid ascent kills. Decompression sickness does not negotiate. Panic accelerates failure. Extraction proceeded in phases through pressurized transfer modules. Each group was stabilized at depth, then moved according to decompression schedules approved by medical officers. On the surface, chambers were staged and staffed before the first ascent began. This process took hours. During that time, perimeter security remained intact. No reinforcement attempts reached the site. Maritime patrol aircraft monitored approaches. Surface vessels maintained distance to avoid acoustic contamination. Inside the facility, power remained stable. Air quality was controlled. No shortcuts were taken. By the end of the operation, 340 individuals had been extracted. No fatalities, no decompression injuries, no uncontrolled flooding. The submerged facility was rendered inert. Power isolated, structural access sealed. The site was marked for long-term monitoring and dismantlement. What mattered most was not the scale of the structure, but what it represented. Criminal organizations adapt continuously. When pressure closes one domain, they move to another. Surface routes become air routes. Air routes become subsurface networks. The ocean is not empty space. It is contested terrain. Control of that terrain does not come from reaction. It comes from detection, from patience, from coordination. This operation did not end with explosions or pursuit. It ended with silence, documentation, and control. That is how real interdictions work. The mission continues, the environment changes, and Navy Recon will be watching. If you value clear analysis of real-world maritime operations, make sure you're subscribed and ready for what comes next.